Hey everyone. So I just want to start by saying happy Mandela Month. And we're here again speaking on healthy relationships. I'm just waiting for my lovely sister to join the live so I can actually request her. And we'll just be talking about effective communications. We'll be talking about mistakes we make on communication, how to better communication. And yes, so we're just trying to have a conversation with everyone on healthy relationships. So let me wait for the good sister. Let me wait for the good sister. She's in. She's in. She's in. Amazing, sis. Let's make it happen. Let us make it happen.
Hey,
Hey, hey, how are you?
I am well. I am so well. I'm cold, but I'm well.
Very, very cold. It's very, very cold this side as well. Like, I even have my heater
It's
on down.
supposed to be summer, man. This is summer. Summer.
Wait, is it that's not you?
Yes, and it's meant to be. It's meant to be, but you know how it is.
Yeah, no. I'm glad you can make it this week.
Yeah, oh my goodness. We took a break. We took a break, that's all.
Yeah, yeah. But it's not a break that we want to take. It's just
No,
that we
no, it's true.
were in
Yeah,
reception area last week. I mean, at a
yeah,
reception era.
yeah,
So
yeah. It was pretty wild. It was pretty wild and unfortunate, but we are back.
we are back with it. We are back with it. Okay, let's start the conversation. So we're trying to talk about the mistakes we make on conversation. And last week I touched on how the mistakes that I make with conversation and actually trying to resolve issues with friends or family.
Like last week?
No, no, we touched on it briefly before
Oh,
before the
okay.
reception cut us. So I
My
just want to.
reception was pretty bad the whole time, so but
Okay,
yeah,
you didn't get it.
it's all good.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. So
Today we
I
good.
was saying that when I try to have communication, especially when I'm trying to resolve communication, I try not get my emotions in the argument or the
Oh
communication
yes,
because once I
I
get
remember. Yeah.
because I feel like for me that once I start getting my emotions involved in communication or conflict resolution, then I start coming from a point of where things have to be about me and what I feel. And
Mhm.
yes, it has to do with me, but sometimes when you make things about, when I make things about my emotions with conflict resolution, I tend to want to be the one that is right. And I tend to be the
Mhm.
one that has to be heard. So for
Mhm.
me, when I do try and have conflict resolution, I really distance myself from my emotions and I try and find the moral or the meaning of the conflict and why we're having a conflict and trying to get
Right.
to that on okay, so
Right.
what's supposed to happen? And I'll give you a brief example because you did ask it for it last week and I had time to think about it. So it might not be my own personal experience, but I remember that my sister went through some arguments with a helper
Mhm.
in the house. So the helper was like, so my sister was like, please don't put that there. Put it here because dad is gonna get angry if you don't put it here. And the helper was like, no, I'm not gonna listen to a child because a child is not supposed to tell me what I'm supposed to
Tell
do.
me what to do. Who are you?
You know what I'm saying?
I'm Salayo, I'm the adult. I might be the helper, but I'm the adult. I hear you. Uh-huh.
You know, and that was for me that was very it's a great example because the moral of the conflict was a young person was saying, please don't put that there, put it here because that's how we do it here. And she was like, no, I'm not gonna listen to a child. And because she put her feelings in the situation, it became a thing of she has to be heard now because she's an adult and therefore no matter what my sister's going to say, because of her emotions, my sister would have always been wrong in that situation. And I felt like that's a perfect example why I try to distance my emotions with conflict resolutions. I don't know, what's your
Mm.
take on that?
Um, I do understand what you're saying, but just to be the devil's advocate, I think like it's not a I when you're talking about emotions and not getting emotions involved, like I say, I kind of get the concept, but at the same time, I don't think it's that getting our emotions involved is the problem. I think it's that we struggle to effectively communicate our emotions. So things we
Oh,
don't communicate our emotions. We like let our emotions control us and we let ourselves like the emotion dominate us. Do you know what I'm saying? So instead of like now you're angry, instead of like communicating like this is making me angry, can we like can we talk about it? I don't like this. Instead of doing that and communicating through the emotion, we're allowing the emotion to like control and be like, like I'm angry, and that's it. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So that's why last week I was kind of like questioning you further on it because I feel that communicating emotions is important. That's kind of like a lot of what communication is. It's like learning to express and connect, right? Like we can't exclude emotions from who we are as just human beings in general. Like we kind of need that. That's what drives us to connect. That's what drives us to communicate a lot of the time. And so I think it's just that we often don't know how to communicate our emotions, especially for men. And I think this is a big part of the
yeah,
problem, like especially for men. Like this is something I talk about with like my male friends, my brothers, like a lot. Like it's something we really talk about because it's just like there isn't a space for this, and that's why like I was sharing that like that other space. That's another conversation, but I shared that other space with you because I know that men need the space, like that safety to be able to
com-
express. And so, and even though it seems like such a simple thing, but because children, like young boys, aren't given the opportunity or taught as children to express themselves, it's kind of like, no, you got to be strong. Like you're a man, be a man. That like develops into their adulthood where then they're having emotions, but they don't really know what to do with them. So it then instead ripples out into violence, into like addiction, into like really, really destructive behaviors, which then causes a lot of the world's problems. But that's a huge diversion. To come back to what we're talking about, I think that like yeah, communicating emotions, knowing how to communicate our emotions is really important. And I know that like yeah, I've definitely made a lot of mistakes with that as well. It's a skill. Like it's literally a skill. You know when people start talking about like maybe like you're writing your CV or applying for jobs or thinking about that kind of stuff. You always like, these are the kind of things, oh, like, communication skills or organizational skills. We think about it when it comes to work. We think about that stuff for work and we apply it in
yeah,
the workplace. We apply,
yeah,
but in our personal life, how often do we actually think about that stuff? How often do we like intentionally strive to express ourselves and like use our communication skills in an effective way? I really don't think we use that enough. I really don't think that it's something
yeah,
that we like that we nurture enough because it causes so much misunderstanding. And honestly, like so many relationship issues and breakups could be resolved, I believe, could be resolved if communication was improved. Like really, like
yeah,
really big time, like
yeah.
yeah.
So with going back to how men in specific can't communicate, I think it also has to do with society because society hasn't. Okay, I'm gonna be very. I don't know if this is controversial, but I feel like society doesn't really care about men, and they don't really care about the emotions of men. Because who are we really going to talk to about our emotions? Because like as a man, and even with as a man in a relationship, my job as a man in a relationship isn't I don't feel like it's to really be cared about because of my emotions. I feel like having my emotions is something that I'm supposed to deal with myself
Mm,
and with a therapist. And I agree that if therapy is very expensive. Not a lot of people can afford therapy.
right.
And as men, we really don't have a space or a safe space where we can communicate our emotions. Because even in a relationship, it's very, very hard to communicate our emotions because
Why is it
that's not,
hard though? It shouldn't be hard.
it's
I know
not,
why it's hard. I know what she's saying. Like, you kind of said society doesn't allow that, like men to express their emotions and things like that. But at the end of the day, who's society? Like, we make up society, right? Society is literally us. Like, people make up the whole of society. So we can determine that, we can change that. So I think, like, when we use these terms of like, oh, but society is like this, I get it in the general sense of things, and like in the
yeah.
broader sense to like describe, you know, the sort of bigger scale of things. But we also kind of like if you look at your friend groups, it's kind of like pressure that we also put on each other. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, as guys, like within your group of friends, let's say, like, when was the last time within your circle there was a guy who like emotionally expressed themselves? Like, has there been that kind of
So it's last week.
situation, and how did it unfold? Because
So
that's
last,
where I think the issue is that we don't allow it within ourselves. Forget about society. We can't,
yeah.
we can't control society. Let's talk about like what we can, like our people, what's around us.
So I will tell you a story that happened last week with me and one of my friends, right? So my friend is going through a breakup. So he was like, look here, in this relationship that I was in, I wasn't really cared about. I was the one that always had to provide, provide, provide. And I was like, yes, bro, that's what you're supposed to do. And he was like, so how come my feelings are never being taken in consideration, or my feelings were never being taken in consideration in that relationship that he was in? And I was like, yes, bro, because that's society, and you have to understand that that's how it is. You as a man now, and I was reading this book the other day, that you as a man, you're supposed to deal with your emotions, and you're supposed to go to therapy if you can afford it. And he was like, so what am I supposed to do? I was like, bro, suck it up. He literally, I didn't want to be the one to
No.
I didn't want to be the one to tell him this, but he had to suck it up. And him being with me and having to express those emotions with me was very powerful. And I really did try to confide him. But at the end of the day, it's that this is society, and he literally, or at least I feel like he really had to suck it up in that relationship or in that moment,
Why?
because
Why couldn't he be emotional within the relationship?
that's he wasn't he couldn't get that. He It's not something that he was trained to do, and it's not something that his girlfriend was probably trained to do. So it's two people coming together that aren't
Who
trained
gets
for.
trained? Who gets trained for relationships, though? We don't get trained for relationships. That's the thing. We're blindly just following what society is saying. So it's like, on one side, we're saying society is messed up for being this way, but at the same time, we're like following society. So it's kind of
So
like we're just perpetuating the toxicity. We're not doing anything about it. It's like we don't get trained. Like, nobody who gets, like, I don't know. Maybe there are some people who get like prepped to be in relationships. I think in the olden days maybe it was like that. Women were prepared to cook and to clean and all those skills, and like, you're gonna be a wife and this is what it's about, and you're gonna be a man and this is what it's about. But we're in the 21st century, and that has changed, and it's no longer about like man is this and woman is this. It's like, there's this equality thing coming up now, and there's this whole thing of like looking deeper into, it's no longer just about the woman looks after the house, the man brings in the money. I get that. That's the foundational element of the gender roles within like relationships and society now, but it's like, where are emotions within that? If you're in a relationship with someone, there are emotions involved naturally. You love them, for example, like hello, that's an emotion, right? So is it now exclusively that emotion that is allowed within the relationship, and everything else is just prohibited? Like, we're only allowed to love each other. We're not allowed to share fear. We're not allowed to share anxiety. We're not allowed to share all the other emotions. Like, I don't get that.
we
That
totally
shouldn't it be like that?
I feel like we should totally be allowed to do that, but it's looked down upon. And where we are in society, I don't
Who
know,
by who? Okay, go on.
this
Sorry.
is something that I'm also trying to understand, but this is where I am. What is he supposed to do if his emotions aren't being taken seriously, or if they're not being taken into account? What is he supposed to do? He's supposed to speak to his girlfriend about it, yes, which he did, But now, if it's still going on, what is he supposed to do? Because there's love. There's love, but the only thing is that his emotions aren't being taken like into consideration. What is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to speak to his girlfriend? Is he supposed to go to a psychiatrist? What is he supposed to do?
Okay, but
Is
now, like, okay, so now it's obviously an individual thing. I don't know how the brother communicated with the girl. I don't know what he said. I don't know what was happening, but it's just like, you don't, how can I say this? Um, you don't step in a car and know how to drive it the first time, right? You go and you have lessons and you mess up and you go
yeah,
and you do it and you mess up. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like
yeah,
you can't just expect because one conversation didn't go right that now it's over. If there's love, you keep trying. Like you go back and you first, like, if it didn't work, you kind of like, okay, why didn't it work? Not just now shut it down completely. And I think that's a big mistake that we make, especially as millennials. I think we touched on this in the beginning, is that we're just very easy to quit on things. We're very easy to just be like, okay, but it didn't work. Like we tried, but it didn't work. It's like, like we have there's all these statistics. We have like the highest divorce rate right now. Like people are just like, they're getting married just to get divorced, to get, like, do you know what I'm saying? And back then that wasn't happening. It's just like, what's going on? We have this picture perfect idea of what it's all supposed to look like, but we don't know what the hell we're doing. And it's like we're expecting it all to be just perfect and right from the get-go, and we forget that, like, it gets real. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be things coming
yeah.
up that are like going to be difficult. But do you just like run away and quit at the beginning? Because then if that's what you do, then is it love? Like, do you really have the love there? Or is it just like a fantasy that you've got in your head? If there's
But
love, then you're going to like evaluate, okay, I tried and it went like this. What could I have done better? Which part of that conversation, you know, didn't, did I communicate what I needed to? Did she
yeah,
understand what I was trying to communicate? Do you know what I mean? We need to like unpack things. We need to go deeper. We don't go deeper enough. Like our society, like not our society, our generation, we scratch the surface and we think we
yeah,
tried. That's our effort. We scratch, we try. We don't dig anymore. We need to go deeper. We need to really like, okay, if I love this person, I'm gonna try and make it work. What does that mean? If it's important for me to be able to communicate my emotions to this person, let's do that. Let's sit down and be like, look, this happened the other day, and I tried talking to you about it, but I don't know. I feel like you maybe you didn't hear me, or you didn't understand. Can we talk about it some more? Right? Is she open? If she's not open to talking about it, then I'm gonna have questions. If she's just like, nah, you tripping, nah, you like, nah, like you being soft. Like I just leave, because then that's the dangerous stereotype that we have of men that keeps them. Because like the highest suicide, I can't remember. I get confused between like our private conversations and these conversations. But like I think we've spoken about how or I was telling you one time about how like the what is it, the highest cause of death between like among men, I think it's here in the UK between like 21 and 35 is suicide, right? And that largely, and you wouldn't know it, and it's always by like men who, it's you don't even know like what just happened, why, because men don't have the space to communicate, to be emotional. So now if you've got a girl and you're trying to communicate your emotions with her and she's like, nah, you're being soft, like, I'm sorry, but leave.
but
Leave. Like,
that
you don't need that kind of
thing.
energy. Like, that's exactly what's toxic, is that
So
we're not allowing that space.
thing is that if you're always going to leave because a girl is not like listening to your communicate or your communi or like listening to your feelings, that's like every other female in South Africa. They're
And
not
that's the
really.
problem. That's the
So now,
problem.
what, must he stay single for the rest? Okay, because for me personally, like, am I supposed to now stay single for the rest of my life because the women in South
No,
Africa
okay, but
don't
let's be real.
feel
It's not every
like
other
wish?
girl in South Africa. Let's be like,
But
you're
like
not gonna stay
most,
single.
but most,
If
most,
that's really what
like,
you're afraid of, Lindo, I assure you, fam. Like, you're
no,
good.
no. I'm even at a point where I don't even want to communicate my feelings anymore to any female. Like I
That
want to
makes me sad.
with my emotions alone. If not, I want to deal with it with a psychiatrist or a therapist. Like I want to have an output, or like I'm gonna have like this platform right here where I can speak to you and speak to the people that are on this live, to actually be like, okay, guys, this is a community, this is a safe space. I'm going through this. This is what's happening
Yeah,
at home. So
yeah.
that's why I think we need more safe spaces for men and females to actually communicate the emotions, because if I'm not gonna be able to communicate my feelings at home, then I need to communicate them somewhere. And if my
Yeah,
friends aren't gonna listen, then I need to communicate them somewhere. Therapy is expensive,
yeah. No, I
but
hear
if you
that.
can
I hear what you're saying. So like, yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
mm,
I think we're kind of maybe we're kind of talking about like two slightly different things here. So there's like obviously your emotions of you as an individual that you have and like things that you're going through. And then there's things within the relationship. So I'm saying like within the relationship, you need to be able to talk to your partner about things that are coming
yeah,
up, problems within the relationship. Yeah, so if they're triggering you in some kind of way, if they're like, something that they do, whatever's happening within emotions within the relationship, you need to be able to talk about those emotions, like, period. That because that's both of y'all's business. That's not just your business. Your
yeah,
own stuff, like your own personal things, like, yeah, that can go either way. Maybe your girlfriend can hold that space for you, maybe not. Maybe your friends can hold it for you, maybe not. But like, I'm just saying, like, to have zero for a girlfriend to have zero space for their partner's like emotions, I don't think that's what I'm saying is healthy. There needs to be that like that space for them to like for them to also hold their partner emotionally with
yeah,
what's happening, because like guys
yeah,
get hurt too. Like, come on, like it's just
yeah,
logic. Do you know what I'm saying? And the fact that we don't allow for that is the problem. Now, when I said before, like, okay, if they don't allow, like, leave, that's dramatic. Obviously,
yeah,
there's other things you can do. It's not like leave, but it's like, all right, explain to them. Like, if this person is important to you, then you're gonna take the time and sit down and be like, this is a toxic behavior trait that you're doing right now, because like there's so many, like I think you spoke about it before, like toxic behaviors within relationships. I was thinking about it earlier. Things like gaslighting, for example, right?
yeah,
And this has been coming up a lot for me lately, like within conversations with friends. It's just like when someone expresses how they're feeling, and then the other person just responds by kind of like making them question or doubt that they're okay. It's gonna get confusing. I come to you and I'm like, yo, Linda, this happened, and I feel some type of way about it, and I'm really upset, or I'm hurt, or I'm angry, and you're just like, you're overreacting, man, get over it. Anyway, yesterday, do you know what I mean? Like, just completely like making the person feel like whatever they're feeling is just like nothing and not a big
yeah,
deal. And so now this person's gonna be questioning, am I overreacting? And that kind of thing. So like,
yeah.
that's a toxic behavior trait. And if you as a male recognize that your partner, that's just one example, by the way, the gaslighting, like there's so many different other examples, but if you recognize that your partner is doing that, because now we how can I say this, like, I'm really like, this is something I'm really happy about, is that like now these past like couple of years we're learning the language and the vocabulary for these things. Like gaslighting wasn't really a word, at least in my vocabulary, a few years ago.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but now we have the vocabulary to describe these things, to talk about these things, so we can recognize behaviors and say, hang on a minute,
Yeah.
that doesn't look right. And so we can talk about it. And whereas in the past, we wouldn't really know. Like another person is just like, oh, you're being like this. And then you're just like, okay, maybe I am. Let me just forget
So I
about it.
have a
And then,
question, right?
do you know what I'm saying? Mm,
I have a question, right? So how
shoot.
how does one communicate better? How do you communicate better? Or how would you promote better communication?
Um, so there's a lot of things really. Like obviously, conversations vary, depends what's happening. Is it conflict? Is it just, but I think essentially like the foundations of like effective communication, listening, man. It sounds like such an obvious thing, but we do not listen anymore. Like really listen. Do you know what I'm saying? Like listening in the sense that you're just there hearing the person without you now having your own reactions and making it about yourself, and kind of like as they're speaking you're already thinking how you're going to respond and how you're going to tell them that they're wrong and how you're going to prove them wrong. Like just hear the
Mm,
person out, because I think that's where so much goes wrong, is that we're not actually listening to like really understand where the person is coming from. We're listening from our own perspective and we're making it about ourselves. So
mm,
like someone starts talking, and we just immediately make it about us and not hearing them. So listening for me, like really active listening, like it's called active listening now, which I think is just like, and it sounds like such a silly thing because obviously you speak, you listen, that's what a conversation is, but really, really like holding the space for a person to speak and share their truth without you having to like jump in and judge or criticize and things like that. So listening, definitely number one, like active listening, genuinely listening. And I think like, especially when it comes to conflict, I think it's really important. Like these are a couple of things that I've learned when it comes to like resolving conflict. So we've just had a really heated argument, emotions go wild and crazy, and then we sit down to, resolve the whole thing. So we tell each other's side of the story. This is what happened for me. This is how I felt about it. And you listen to me. Whatever you feel, whatever your side of the story is, you hear me out. And then I do the same for you, right? And then one really important thing is like validation. So just hearing, like validating the other person's experience.
Yeah.
So when I say that, I just mean like, for example, I could come and say, you said that to me and it was like, you assumed this and it was like that. Da, 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 da. Whereas from your perspective, that's not what it was. And then you could, for you in that situation, you could jump in and be like, no, you're wrong. That's not what it was. Da, 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 da. But it's not your position. It's not your place to tell another person what their experience was.
Yeah.
And we do that a lot. We are so quick to be like, no, that's not what it was. It's like, listen, it doesn't matter what you think it was. What I experienced was like how I received it. You might not have intentionally been trying to hurt me, but what you said hurt me, and I'm telling you about it. And so
Yeah.
to validate my experience would be for you to be like, okay, damn, I acknowledge that, like, you felt hurt by what I said. Instead
Yeah.
of saying, no, but I wasn't trying to hurt you. That's not what it was. Do you know what I'm saying? That's when we devalue what someone has said, is like just saying that, that's not what it was, and basically telling them that that wasn't the reality. So just validating each other and just being like, yeah, I hear you, like really beyond listening, just actually being like, I hear what you're saying, and like I hear that that was your experience and that you felt that way. And then you move on from there, but not telling someone that their experience wasn't real, because that can also just be toxic. So that helps. Like one way that I find which really helps with that is just like repeating back to people. So like you say something, you're expressing yourself, and then when you're really listening, you mirror. Like there's this thing, mirroring, that we do when we speak. So you just repeat back to a person what they've just said, so you can also make sure that you've heard it right. Because even sometimes you might be listening, you might be thinking that you get it, but to say it out loud
Oh,
and just be like, do you know what I'm
so
saying? So you might be like, you literally just repeat back what they've said. Yeah. So,
oh, I,
yeah. So let's say, for example, we went to a dinner party last night, and as soon as we arrived, you left and socialized with all your friends. Like, let's say we're in a relationship, for example. You left, socialized with your friends, and you didn't come to me the entire night, and I was really hurt and upset by it, and I felt kind of isolated because I didn't know anyone there. It was all your friends, right?
yeah.
And then you might just be like, and if you were to react with your emotions, you might be like, oh, you're being selfish. I was catching up with my friends. I hadn't seen them in long. Like, why couldn't you just have gone and also just talk to other people? Maybe like, I'm an introvert. Maybe I'm shy. So instead of doing that, you can be like, okay, it's not about you in that moment. In this moment, I'm expressing what it was for me. So you can be like, okay, so you're saying that you felt isolated and hurt, that I basically abandoned you for the whole night while I was socializing with my friends. That would be mirroring. So you just say back to them, like, am I getting it right? Like, is that what you're saying? That way the
Yeah.
person truly feels heard, and they're like, okay, that they're actually like hearing me right now, and they're understanding what was happening for me. So yeah, listening, validating, mirroring, and empathy. I think just empathy in general is an important like skill. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
just being able to, yeah, it just kind of
It's
ties in
very,
with everything that I
very,
just said, really.
very
But just say again.
I was going to say that it's very hard to embody someone else's emotions or try and feel what somebody else is feeling, especially in a moment of conflict, because that's not the plan. When you're in a moment of
Exactly.
conflict, just trying to get your points across.
Yeah, but
That's
now we're not talking about the conflict. The conflict
yeah,
has happened. Now we're talking about resolving the conflict. We've had the
yeah,
conflict. Now we've sat down. The emotions are calm, and now we're resolving it. So now we're both coming with the mind that's like, we're here to like move forward and find a solution. Obviously, within the conflict, like, it gets heated. Things get said. Maybe things get thrown around. Maybe somebody marches outside. Like, okay, that's all happened. Now we're talking about how do we move forward. That's the conversation that we're having with all the validation stuff now. So
yeah,
obviously, like, you can be emotional, but if you're already at the point now where you can sit down and have that conversation, you got to be ready to like hear what the person was experiencing, what was going on for them,
totally.
and what their reality was within the situation. Because we know what our reality is, we know what we were feeling, and we think we know what they were feeling, but we might have it completely wrong. So if obviously you value the person, if it's important for you to move forward with this person and to understand them, then you have to be ready to kind of like understand what they were feeling. Not to like, obviously you're not literally going to feel what they were feeling, but to just understand where they're coming from. And even if
Yeah.
we can't do that, listening is just the first thing, and that can make a huge difference. Like,
Yeah.
really,
That's to listen
can't
and
emphasize
understand.
that enough.
It's a skill. It's a skill. So
For sure.
we're on 30th minutes. I don't know. Does anyone on this live stream want to go
Jump
live and have
on.
conversation and actually speak about anything that we've just spoken about, how you resolve communication, I mean conflict, and how you better communication. I don't know. This is now just an open and a request for anyone to join the live and actually have a conversation with me on here. So yeah, that's so that's where we're at. Let's see here. What else do we need to discuss? Do you know what else we need to discuss?
Tell me about a time that you had to, like, that you experienced some conflict and what happened. Like,
Conflict. Okay,
parents, friends, relationship. Oh, also,
there's
like, if people do want to come in and share their experiences, just like send the request so Linda can see, and then you can jump in and share your story also.
so here's probably not conflict. Here's an experience that I had last week. Last week I was kind of going through it. And
Hey, you
luckily
were, man. Second story from last week.
last week I was
What was
going
happening?
last week last week I didn't have the best week last week, right? So my energies was just a bit low, and luckily I don't know, cause I'm not a person that speaks to people when I'm going through things. So, and especially because now I understand that, look, some things I just have to suck it up and deal with alone, because nobody is really there. But I think it's also great for me that I have great friends around me, because out of the blue, one of my friends texted me, and then I was like, you know what, let me just try and open up and see if I can deal with whatever it is by speaking to someone. So I spoke to my friend. I was like, hey, bro, like, what's going on? Are you good? Yes, yes, yes. And then I was just like, look, bruh, I'm thinking of like just quitting, getting a job, and like conforming to society, and like just building a life with employment, with having a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
And I was just going through it because of that, because of I just felt like my dream is just taking too long. So my friend is just like, look here, bro. If you quit, a lot of people are gonna be happy. You know what I mean? And if I quit, then everything that I've done, the past 4 years of my career and the past 10 years of myself learning everything that I've learned, like graphic designing, everything, photography, to this point, would all be going to waste. That means it's 10 years going to waste, and now you're just gonna go work for someone. And what else did he say that really it really changed how I felt. And I guess him just saying that if I quit, a lot of things are just gonna go to waste. I feel like in that small breath, I felt like somebody listened to me, you know, and it might have not been the best advice or the greatest advice, but it really did something for me. Just someone being like, Lindo, like, look here, I hear you want to quit, my boy, but you can quit. You can quit. But if you quit, just understand that you are
But
he was like, but understand, and he really gave me the freedom to quit. He was like, look here, my boy, if you do quit, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you do quit, you must understand that you have now proved people right. And besides people and besides the community, I have now wasted 4 years and another 10 years of my career. So what is the point in that? And I was just really happy that I had a space to communicate with someone and actually offload. And that really did help me as a guy that doesn't have therapy. So I also feel like in life it's very important to have friends or even just relationships or just anyone that you can confide in, because in that moment, in that storm, I felt like there was no one that I could speak to. So I really had to be vulnerable with this person and
Yeah,
be like,
yeah,
yo, I'm trusting you with my emotions, my friend. Don't let me down.
yeah.
So I guess for me that was an experience that I went through last week with just communication. And an experience that I had, what was the question again? You asked
Like
me,
conflict, when you've had conflict, yeah, and had to like resolve some conflict with someone, how it how it works. I mean,
okay,
but actually that doesn't matter. I kind of want to unpack a little bit of what you said there, because I'm just curious now. You were saying about how, you know, having friends and people to kind of share emotions with and things like that. Like, as a guy, with what we've spoken about in terms of society and the stereotypes, like, what's the process that you go through when you are talking about your emotion? Like, is it something that you think about a lot? Like, okay, let me talk, and then is it? I'm just very curious. Like, what's the process that a guy goes through when they are, maybe when they want to talk about their emotions but they feel like they can't? Is there like fear? Is it hesitation? Is it just like there's no point? Is it a lack of trust in friends? Is it just like, no, you can't do that? Or is it just like suck it up? Like, what happens for you when you want to communicate emotions but
for me personally, it's a thing of I need to try and do it alone. Like my thing is that I can't run to someone if I haven't tried to deal with it alone. So my thing is, if I'm facing a storm, I have to try and deal with it alone. And it might be toxic because I might try and deal with it alone for like 2 months. And when is it gonna stop for me to try and deal with it alone? But the process that goes through my head when I try and even ask for help, or even when I try and communicate anything, is just like a thing of people are going through their own things. People are probably experiencing what I'm experiencing, but they're good with it. It's not eating them up the way it's eating me up, you know? And I think that's why sometimes I could find myself
it's a lie?
being no,
Everybody's struggling with
I
it,
think it's
man. But go on, go on.
and for me, it's when I'm with a lot of friends at that time, I feel like I'm dealing with the situation. I might not be dealing with the situation, but if I'm with people that are making me laugh, as a man, I feel like that's how I'm dealing with the situation. And I think that's why a lot of men like to get together and drink every single weekend, because that's where
But then
we
what
actually.
happens when you're not drinking? When you go home, you leave the group of friends now, there's no more friends, you're not laughing, you're not drinking, and you're back home. Where are the emotions then? Have they been resolved and they're gone through being with your friends? Or
I don't think they ever resolved. I just think you are now kind of. I feel happy. I'm like, you know what? I'm dealing through a storm, but I had an amazing weekend. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I deal with it. It's like I had this problem. I went to my friends this weekend. I didn't tell them that I'm having this problem, but my friends made me laugh. They made me feel secure. They didn't make me feel small while I was in that group of friends. So it's a thing of like I'm happy for being around people that can make me happy, and then now I can go back to my own space and deal with it alone, because it's not nice dealing with something for weeks on weeks and ends on ends without it being
but do
resolved.
you deal with it alone? That's what I'm trying to get at, because it kind of sounds like the very like
Sometimes,
common approach that people have of like, you have an emotion, you kind of distract yourself with the emotion with some kind of pleasure. So for men, it can offer just, it can be drinking, it can be shopping, it can be food, and then you come home and you still have the emotion, and then what? So you're saying you come home and you deal with it. Like, do you deal with it, or do you wait for the next time to feel happy and distracted?
I guess I just suppress the emotion to a point where the emotion is part of me, or the situation is part of me,
Mm,
where
mm.
I'm just like, hey, this is happening.
Linda, that's so toxic. No,
Like,
no, breaks
this
my
is how I
heart.
deal with it. This is how I deal with most of the
But
things
it's
that
not
happen.
dealing. This is the thing. Every time you say deal, I'm getting a twitch, because you're not dealing with it. Like you say, you're suppressing it or you're drinking. You keep saying deal. I'm like, where's the dealing? Like,
It's
I'm
for
just
me.
wondering. I'm just wondering. Like, you say that, okay, you go with your friends, have an amazing weekend, you'll drink, good times, have a laugh, it's nice.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, if you were to, if you were able to now, um, let's say among your friends, there was now this emotional space that y'all could have. Let's just say, let's imagine. So instead of getting together and you guys drink and you laugh, and which is fine, like you do that. But let's say before you drink and you laugh and you have a good time. Let's say you'll sit down and you'll actually discuss and talk about your emotions and like what's everybody going through, gents? Like let's talk. Let's just get everything out right now. Do you think that would that be something you think would be good, or do you think like would that be something that you would want, not as you, but just like that you think should be more like common or like present within groups, or do you think that it probably wouldn't work? Like, what are your thoughts on that kind of connection? And then you still have a good time after, you can still drink, but I'm just saying, like, if that was to be incorporated among your friends, what would happen?
It should. It really should. And the book I'm reading, actually, it's talking about how, as men, we are supposed to come together once a week and tell each other what everyone is going through. It's something that
Yes.
should happen. And it doesn't happen all the time, but I think with men, with okay, at least let me say my group of friends, it's not something that's it's like an understanding. It's like I don't know how to say this. It's like I know we're all dealing.
You'll do that. You'll do that. What I was saying, you'll scratch the surface a little. You'll kind of talk about it, but
Yeah,
you won't really talk. You
but
just scratch the surface. You're just like, ah, yeah, Gunzima. But anyway, let's drink.
yeah,
Just
we
as a
all
scratch.
man, you know what I'm saying? And then and I think because of that little tiny bit of like sympathy, it does something. It really does something.
Yes,
Like
of
sometimes
course.
I don't need to get into the whole thing, which society will never do. I'm not saying that my group of friends don't
I
do
don't
that.
like that.
I'm not saying that my group of friends don't do that. I'm just saying that it's a thing of even if even if somebody scratches the surface with it and just says okay you like so here's an example when there was a time when I had a job, right? I was working for this company and I wanted to resign, and then I called my friend. I was like, bro, I'm having it. I want to resign. I'm going through it. Like I just want to start this business. And then my friend, I wouldn't lie, this is the best advice and I've ever gotten from a man. And he was just like, Lindo, I understand you going through this thing, you want to quit your job, right? But give it 3 months. He was like, what I do is if I want to quit, I give my job 3 months, and if I still feel like I want to quit after 3 months, then I quit. You know what I mean? So that was the best advice that I've ever had in my whole life.
Did you
And
quit?
I quit. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this thing 3 months because it also made me realize that I'm not the only one in this thing of wanting to quit my job. A lot of people want to quit their jobs, but what my friend said, the advice of give it 3 months, and if you're still not happy in 3 months, quit. And because of that advice, that 3 months, I was happy in that 3 months. Like, even though I was like, what the hell, they making me do this again? I was happy because I was like, you know what? Let me just give it 3 months. And then if I still feel the same, then I will leave. And that was, and alone, in solidarity, I could never have come up with that. I was going to go to that job day after day, month after month, for probably 2 more years and feel the
Hating
same.
life.
You know what I mean? So it's very important to actually communicate. Thank you. It's very important. So we do scratch the surface, and sometimes we do get in deep. I think it just depends on where the person's at that time. You know.
How deep you'll get though? Like, I'm kidding. I'm not going to push this, but I think it's
Mm.
important. I think it's so important. But I think it just requires a level of courage for like for guys to be able to even start thinking about that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like to even like
Yeah,
bring that up and make that a thing. Cause do you know what I mean? Like for a
yeah.
guy to just be like, okay, gents, let's talk about our emotions. Like, you know what I mean? Like everyone's just gonna be like, I
Oh
don't
my
know. I
God.
don't know. I'm assuming, but people would not react. Like maybe I don't know how that would look. Maybe we got different circles and stuff and guys. But I know that I can imagine that being like a really challenging thing for a guy to do anyway. But
It's very, and I feel like you
necessary.
have to be, and I'm gonna use this word, confidant. I got this word from TD Jakes. He was like, you have people in your life that you can open up with. You know, you have to have confidence in life. People that you can speak to about anything and everything, and you can also have friends, and you can also have family and whatever. So the confidants are the ones that people you can go to and actually have real conversations with, because I can't be
Right.
with my confidant and my friend and my acquaintance and my and his girlfriend and his girlfriend's girlfriend and speak about my emotions. Does that make sense?
That's the thing, though. That's what I'm saying. You see, I hear you. I hear you. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. And I agree, like, it's like that, and everybody thinks that, but it's just like the fact that we think that that's such a problem is weird. I think it's weird, the fact that we think that, but it's reality. It's true. I
Yeah,
get you. Like, you wouldn't do that. But the fact that, like, because we're all going through, at the end of the day, we're all going through, like, more or less the same things most of the time. That's what I found. So I've been in a lot of like circles. I've been doing a lot of like, I've been doing circle work for like years. I joined my first circle like, yo, oh no, that, okay, yeah, about 4 or 5, 6 years ago, 6 years ago. And it was a women's circle. So basically, women's circle, women would get together every 2 weeks. We sit, we do some like cleansing rituals and all this stuff. And it's just where we now as women connect. We share whatever we need to share. We put it like whatever. It can be
yeah.
something that we've been going through in life. And we just kind of support each other. There's no advice. There's no leader. It's literally just like, go. Like whoever needs to speak, the speaking stone, there's a speaking stone. Pick up the speaking stone, you speak whatever you need, you get as emotional as you need to, and you put the speaking stone down. Someone might respond, like we strictly don't give advice. It's just to be heard. Someone might respond if they want to. They can pick up the phone and just be, even like a lot of people just be like I hear you, like even just saying that, like I hear you, and sometimes they'll repeat back, I hear that you said this, I hear that you said that. And even that alone is so powerful. Like when you've
Very
been,
powerful.
like I don't know about you, but when you've been like going off ranting about a story, like venting, saying something that you've been going through, and somebody just like tells you what you've just said. I've had this happen. I've just been like, whoa, I said that. And just literally having someone point out, like, while you were venting, you literally said this particular thing 5 times. And just that alone is like, whoa, okay, that can shed so much light. And then I've been in circles with it where it's both men and women. I currently am in like a couple of circles that I attend every week, 2 different circles I attend every week, mixed men and women. It's kind of the same thing. And it is such a powerful thing. And so important, because I
I think
think it's when we are in story and in circle and we are sharing our stories, we really like realize that we're not that different. Like people are going through, and I'm talking like there's a lot of diversity within the circles. Like so, the circle that I attend regularly, like every week, once a week. This one, it's a small one. There's 7 of us. When I started it, I only knew one person in the circle. I didn't know the other people. Oh no, I knew 2. I didn't know the others. And these are people in their like 40s, 50s, 60s, right? And then another one, it's more mixed, men and women, but all ages, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And again, didn't know anyone there. But like once you've heard everybody speak from all these different backgrounds, different age groups, different life experiences, essentially what they share, like you can relate to everything, like something in everything that has been said. And I think that a lot of the time that can be really what prevents us from even the idea of sharing our emotion, because then it's just like, no, they're gonna think this, they're gonna think that, but it's like most likely they're just gonna be like, yo, that happened to me, like, or I know like what you're, do you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of time we fear things that aren't even real. Like we stop ourselves so much, so I think it's
and
like it's
just
necessary, so necessary.
by Lamum M. Can I call you M? So he
No
says that
man, be respectful.
I
Lamuleli.
think Mlamleli, yeah, because I didn't want to say his name and surname as one thing. So it's Mlamleli. Mlamleli. Let me try it again. Mlamuleli Wezwe. Okay, I
There we
get
go.
it. Mlamuleli Wezwe. Mlamuleli Wezwe. Sorry, brother. I'll get it next week. Trust me. Trust
M
me.
is good. He's chill. M is good.
So and that also normally happens with my group as well. Like when usually these things start as a joke, then it gets deeper with my with his group. Sometimes it
Yeah,
only stays a joke. Like
yeah,
sometimes I can bring something up and be like, let me see for an example. Like when so the other week I wanted to do photography. I wanted to go to a photography thing. And then my mother was like, "Is it gonna give you money?" And I just like, "It's not gonna give me money, but this is what I want to do with my time." And that really touched me that I now have to do this photography thing only if it gives me money. So granted, I took a point. She made a valid point in that conversation. So I went to the homies, or I could go to the homies and be like, "Hey, gents, can you imagine? This is just what happened,"
like
and they could
risas
be like, "Hey,
complaining.
I've experienced the same thing." And can you imagine? But it ends up a joke the whole time where somebody relates. And I think that if somebody relates to your story,
Mm.
sometimes they don't even have to give you advice. It's just like, "Hey,
Yeah,
Joe, that's
yeah,
simple thing
exactly,
to me.
exactly.
Like it
Yeah,
happens."
no, exactly. That's what it is. Just knowing that like there's other people going through that can bring so much relief, man. Like that's it. Like what, like how you were saying just now about how men should gather like every week, same as women should be gathering every week. That's all about sharing stories. That is literally what it should be. That's how it started. It was never just like we need to sit down and talk about our emotions. Like that approach, I don't think would ever really work. But it's just like sharing stories. That's really it. And even if
Yeah,
your story is just one line, like mom's is thinking this or she said that, it's just like
yeah.
that's your story, and people can hear that and relate to it, and it brings a sense of relief because then suddenly it's not something that you're thinking now like, yo, is this like should I be worried about this? Do I need to do something? But it's just like, and you're stressing by yourself about it. It's actually something that you know now. Like, okay, the guys are also, they also know, and that's an example. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't need to go deeper. I get that, but I
Yeah,
think yeah, I think what's important is knowing when you know knowing when you do need more than that, I guess, and getting it, not just like feeling like okay, now it stayed as a joke, but it's like a real thing for you that you have to like
yeah,
actually deal with. But yeah,
yeah. Actually, I'm even at a point where, and I like that idea. I would love this page to be that space actually, where
yeah,
people can share their emotions, and that's why we are opening this discussion. If anyone here
yeah.
still wants to go on and have a conversation and open up, please send the request, and then I will do the things. But having that space is very, very important because those spaces aren't really there. They're not permanent. They're not permanent, and not a lot of people
They
know about
coming.
them.
They
You know,
growing.
they come.
They coming. They
Yeah.
coming.
So, is there something that you want to get off your chest, or because no one's really asking for a request, and we left
There's
with
something I
six
want to
minutes?
get off my chest. Like, are we diving deep now? Like, we're getting in. There's something I want to get off my chest. Yo, it's like, now are you asking me that?
Let's talk about emotions.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't think, but today, like, a friend of mine and I were talking, like, I'm at my friend's place this weekend, and I think, like, the what, like, insecurities is one thing that's coming up a lot, and I think, to be honest, that's, like, the biggest thing that people don't talk about enough. Is
Yeah.
insecurities. Like, do you know what I mean? Because I think that we can talk about a lot of things, but like personal insecurity, and everybody has
So,
them, and I think they're
yeah.
the hardest thing to really talk about. Like, really, I think like I don't know, and I think yeah, I think there's emotions, and I feel like insecurities is like the next level of that. Like real insecurity stuff.
'Cause
Do
I
you know
feel
what
like
I mean?
if people can break down insecurity, then they can speak about almost anything and everything and actually connect with people on a deeper level because
Yeah.
insecurity is sometimes the reason that you can't engage in certain conversations because you're insecure
Hmm.
of your own experience of that situation sometimes. I know with me, some of the things, like with me, there's some conversations that I can't engage in because I'm insecure with those conversations, you know? Like there's generally some conversations that I don't talk about because I'm insecure because of those.
I really want
Like
to
when
ask why, but you're obviously not going to say them.
I'm gonna say, oh my God, yo. But I do want to get to a point where I can have these conversations about my own insecurity and open up, but I'm just not there yet. And that's
Mm.
I don't know.
No,
What
that
do you
takes
think about
work.
what do you think a person that has insecurity but is not ready to open up about them? What am I supposed to do?
Conversations with yourself. I think that's also one thing that we need to start is to also like, because keeping things in our head, you missed a request, yo.
I missed the
Keeping things
request.
like when we constantly just have things going on for ourselves, we can so I don't know if you've got it, but the hour is gonna run out in like 5 minutes. But if you want, you can just start again, and then he can come join you if you're both up for that. I don't know about that, but that's just what I thought.
Let's. I don't know. I don't know. I think let's start. Can we start with you next week, M?
Oh, you can come in now. I don't know how long you're. I mean, we've got 5 minutes,
Let's
right?
come in now. Let's do it
Yeah,
now.
I can come out. I had
Okay.
time. I had loads of time.
Okay, we'll chat later, ne?
Sweet. Yeah.
Bye. My brother, I just sent you a request, my brother.
Hey,
Ma, how are you?
how's it? How's it? You good?
I'm amazing. So glad you could
Uh,
join, my brother.
yeah. I don't know why it didn't come through yesterday. Maybe, I mean, earlier. You probably missed it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I'll just dive straight in since we have limited time. But I have
yeah,
like, I have a compounded question. It's like a follow-up of many questions usually. But the first one I had was when you were talking about that, like when you're in a group with people or with your group of
yeah.
friends, like maybe there's your confidant there and there's someone else there and someone else there. And it actually got me thinking, I was like, maybe it's actually a breakdown of family ethics. You know what I mean? So, or it's like, yes, I don't know how to describe this. Or it's like our world has become so big that nothing is personal anymore. You know what I mean? So we search for connections outside of family because there isn't really a family ethics. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So in a sense where you can't like you can't speak to your family about certain things, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I just feel like the family dynamics has like shifted like in today's like society, you know what I mean? Like
Like where
family,
you
like
can't go to your own cousin and speak about
yeah,
something.
it just feels like family isn't family. I always see these posts where like
I
blood
do, I
blood is thicker
hear,
than water, but friends
I hear you,
are more family than family. And then sometimes I'm just like,
I hear you.
that's like part of the that's where like part of the it's not a problem, but where part of the shift is. So you find that you actually find more advice from friends than from family. And
True.
the reason why I said our world is getting bigger is because back then we didn't have social media and we didn't connect with a lot of people. So the people you had were the people you would talk to. Like you didn't have a choice. It's like
Yeah,
these are the only people this is your only community. You know what I mean? So now it's like
yeah,
you can just search for anything and you find everything. And it's just like, oh, I don't need to talk to my dad to ask about my manhood. I can just go to Google or whatever. If one day I wake up and it's like morning glory, it's like, oh, what is this thing that's going on? I don't
yeah,
actually talk to like my dad. I'm just like, that's actually so strange.
yeah.
And
And
it starts there and it just like gradually, you know, that's where
no,
I see it's like the
you,
breakdown
you
happens.
you really have a point because same with me. There's things in my life that have happened that I had to go to Google and get answers
Yeah.
for. Where I actually would have loved to go to my dad and be like, yo, bro, what's happening?
Mm,
What can I do? But I think it's also because of the insecurity. Like I'm also very insecure to open up sometimes to my own family. I'd
mm,
rather open up
mm,
to my friends or Google than my own family because family is very. I feel like family is very very well, my family is judgmental.
yeah.
There's some things that I go to my family for. I'd also rather just keep to myself.
So
And
it's like,
also
oh, Karen.
and also just I don't know about you, but also with just being black, some our families aren't big
Mm,
enough.
mm,
You know, like
mm.
you have like only probably speak to one cousin out of like 3,000 that you don't even know. But
Yeah.
because of how your aunts, your mother's fighting with the sister or the brother, so now you can't really go to them for assistance because of those family structures. I don't know. Can I start another live because this one's about to end?
Yeah,
Can
you
I
can.
start?
You can, no problem.
Let me do that.
Cool. Cheers, cheers.